Welcome everyone. In this particular module, I shall introduce yourself with the interrelationship between nutrition and labor productivity. To be more specific, in this particular module, we shall try to learn the importance of nutrition on the productivity of labors. At the same time, we shall try to find out the reasons underlying the presence of long-term malnutrition. We shall also try to find out how malnutrition impacts productivity. See, the traditional analysis of development economics actually paid no importance on the role of nutrition on economic development. At the same time, nutritionists also ignored the importance of economics in the analysis of nutrition. Though economists have talked about health and human capital, the dynamic effects of nutrition and healthcare deprivation on human productivity have always remained outside the realm of development economics. Initially, there was an idea that malnutrition is generally manifested in terms of higher incidence of death. However, over time, ideas changed. It was realized that malnutrition does not necessarily cause death. Rather, in most of the cases, low mortality can coexist with higher incidence of malnutrition. Then, how is malnutrition related to economics? Actually, it was observed that the economic impact of malnutrition was reflected in low productivity. So, it is the linkage between malnutrition and productivity which led to the linkage between nutritional status and economics. In poor economies, the poorest part of the population lacks adequate nutritional intake. And this lack of nutritional status actually affects their capacity to work. This has an impact on the agricultural labor market also, which is our focus. Now, we all know that a person has within herself a potential labor power. The task is to convert that potential labor power into actual labor power. Now, what happens in this regard is that the transformation is not that easy. Why so? Because it has been observed that the actual labor power is also a function of nutrition of specific quantity and quality over a particular period of time. So, until and unless a person gets adequate amount of nutritional intake, it is quite difficult to transform the potential labor power into actual labor power. We have a general idea that the laissez-faire economy is the most efficient form of economic system. Now, if the laissez-faire economy is the most efficient of the economy, then why can't it manage its economic resources in such a way that leads to its efficient utilization? Now, this leads to our first question. Why such nutritional deficiency can persist in a laissez-faire economy? What we find in this regard is that if an economy is non-wealthy and the distribution of wealth is highly unequal, then the labor market allocations can violate the principles of horizontal equity. Now, this violation has certain important impacts. Firstly, poverty can be dynastic. Secondly, luck in this situation plays a significant role in determining the chance of falling in or getting out of the poverty trap. Now, the question is, what do we actually mean by poverty trap? To find it, let us consider Z as the scalar index of person's health. Now, given Z as that index of person's health, we can now define Y as the income of a person and Z as the food intake of person, both of which are positively related to person's health. It is generally assumed that increase in food intake increases health, but at a comparatively slower rate. This is represented in this particular diagram as you observe that with increase in Z, Hz is increasing but at a comparatively slower rate. On the other hand, it is assumed that below a certain level of health, a person has no earning capacity. After that state of health is attained, the earning capacity becomes strongly related to health. Now, this is also reflected in this diagram where below a certain level of health, the earning capacity is 0, but after that the curve YZ, which reflects the earning capacity, is steeper compared to that of HZ, implying that here with increase in the state of health, income is increasing at a comparatively higher rate. Let us consider the equation dz dt, that is the evolution of person's health, as the difference between income YZ and health HZ. Now, let us also assume that dz dt, that is the growth of the state of health with time, declines if YZ is less than HZ. At the same time, if YZ is greater than HZ, then with time the status of health grows. Now, given this idea, let us again reconsider the figure. Now, for a particular state of health which is Z prime, we find that for any Z less than Z prime, Hz exceeds Yz. So, the value of dz dt will become negative. So, health will decline over time. On the other hand, if Z is greater than Z prime, then Yz is greater than Hz, so the state of health will increase over time. Now, given this figure, let us try to find out what is its impact on horizontal equity. To find that, suppose there are two individuals, one slightly to the left of Z prime and the other person slightly to the right of Z prime. This in turn means that their health status does not differ much. However, as revealed from the figure, these two persons, though having more or less the same state of health, will experience a widely differing lifestyle. The people for whom Z is less than Z prime will experience a fall in the state of health over time. At the same time, for the person with Z greater than Z prime will experience an ever increasing health status. What does it imply? It implies that similar persons may not remain similar if they experience widely differing life histories. Now, given this, we have our next question. Can this problem be solved? Actually, there are two ways to solve the problem. The first way is to increase the level of aggregate wealth in the economy. Now, if it can be increased in such a way that HZ and YZ intersects at a higher level of health as shown in the figure, then there is a chance that the problem will be solved. At the same time, there is an alternative option. What is that? The second option is to initiate redistributive policies like cash transfer schemes to poor individuals. Now, one way in which it is generally done is to create employment generation schemes. So, you create employment generation schemes, so you create employment, and that will generate income to the poorest of the poor individuals. Now, if this is the scheme, then another important question arises. Can the attempt to raise the level of income by creating jobs solve the problem? Now, what we find is that the capacity to work and hence the capability to enter into the job market depends crucially on the nutritional status of individuals. Now, if nutritional status is so important, then arises the next question: how to measure nutritional status? Now, see, generally there are three measures which are used to calculate the nutritional status. If we want to find out past nutritional status, we generally look at height, size of hip, thigh, calf, and waist circumferences. At the same time, we also find out daily creatinine extraction, which gives us some idea about the measure of muscle cell mass. If we want to find out the current nutritional status, this can be done by calculating the body mass index. Now, what is a body mass index? The body mass index, which is abbreviated as BMI, is actually weight measured in kg divided by height square, where height is measured in meter. There is a general consensus that any value of BMI less than 15 represents poor nutritional status. However, the most efficient measure of person's physical work capacity is VO2 max. Now, what VO2 max really is? By definition, VO2 max represents the highest rate of oxygen uptake a person is capable of attaining while engaged in physical work at the sea level. Higher the value of VO2 max, the greater the capacity of the body to convert the tissues into work. Now, given these three indicators, let us now give some time to find out the empirical evidences related to nutritional status and productivity. It has been observed that beggars in poor countries are so weak that they are, in most cases, incapable of doing strenuous works like pulling rickshaws or carrying load. Scientific studies have also found that poor people are more prone to stunting and wasting. This implies there is a long-term impact of undernourishment. It has been observed in Bangladesh that the percentage of adult males in that country to be ill in a given month is a declining function of their body mass index. That means the higher their body mass index, the lower is their probability of getting ill. In case of Indian state of Hyderabad, it has been observed that the chance of a baby born with lower birth weight is a decreasing function of mother's body mass index. In Colombia, G.B. Spar observed that if we measure nutritional status in terms of weight for height, skin fold thickness, total body hemoglobin, daily creatinine extraction as well as VO2 max, then we find that there is a high correlation between nutritional status and productivity among adult male sugarcane workers. In Guatemala, Imink et al. Observed that the lean body mass and VO2 max of the laborers are positively related to productivity. Here productivity was measured in terms of quantity of coffee beans picked per day, amount of sugarcane cut and loaded, and time taken to weed a given area. Thomas and Strauss in 1996 observed that height has a strong positive effect on market wages for both men and women in urban Brazil. Satyanarayana et al. And Deolalikar, they also observed that weight for height is positively related to productivity. It was observed by Strauss that energy intake has a positive effect on productivity up to about 5,200 kilocalorie per day. Now, given these empirical observations, let us try to find out the answer of a particular question. How can we now theoretically justify the impact of higher nutrition on productivity? To find it, let us start with the basic energy balance equation. The equation states that the energy consumption X is actually a sum total of maintenance energy R and energy spent on activities E. Now, energy spent on activities E is actually a sum total of the number of composite tasks Q, which is a function of beta, and H, the energy spent on discretionary activities. Here the term beta represents the number of composite tasks. Now given this segregation, we can write x as the sum total of r plus q function of beta plus h. Now given the assumption that all other discretionary activities are fixed, that is r plus h is fixed at v, we find that q function of beta actually becomes a function of x. This in turn implies that beta, that is the number of composite tasks an individual can do, becomes dependent on energy consumption or nutritional intake, which is represented by x. Now this can be represented in the diagram in this way. Here we are representing the number of composite tasks done in the vertical axis and the amount of nutrition intake x on the horizontal axis. The relationship between nutrition and productivity here is represented by the nutrition productivity curve, which is actually a positively sloped concave curve. Now if in this situation we represent efficiency as number of composite tasks done per unit of nutrition intake, that is fx by x, then from this figure we find that efficiency here is maximized at x star level of nutritional intake. Now with this idea, let us now compare between two people, one who have a higher nutritional history. This person's nutrition capacity curve is represented by the red concave curve, which is written as f2x. On the other hand, the person with lower nutritional history is depicted by the blue curve f1x. Now as it is revealed from this particular figure that the person with higher nutritional history has efficient level of productivity which is quite higher compared to that of the person with lower nutritional history. Now given these ideas in our background, let us now try to sum up what we have found. The lessons learned can be summarized in this way. First, nutritional level of individual has an impact on the productivity level of individual. Second, even people with similar potential power exhibits difference in actual labor power due to difference in nutritional histories. Thirdly, history of lower nutritional intake manifests itself in lower productivity. So this is what we have for this module. Thanks for watching.